our youth are being targeted with this drug. They're disguising it. They're putting it in shapes that look like sweet tarts and making them colorful, making them very appealing to young people. This is all in a targeted effort by the cartels operating with impunity just south of our border, flooding this into our nation to get people starting at a very young age hooked on fentanyl, because then they will become lifelong customers.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Our Watch. I am Tim Thompson, and we are going to continue today talking about a crisis that is happening in our nation. That is the crisis of fentanyl. And here to talk to us again about this situation is Matt Capelouto. Matt, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
Yeah, just if people didn't see the first episode with you, you talk about the issue that took place with your daughter. You are a vanguard in dealing with the fentanyl crisis, the fentanyl poisoning that's taking place, and we're going to ask you at the end of this program to tell people again how they can connect with you. But you've got a court case coming up November 7th. This is against a man who murdered your daughter. This is a murder case, and we're going to see what happens November 7th. I hope a lot of people will show up for you to be there in support. But we want to continue to talk about the crisis that is the fentanyl crisis that we're dealing with here in the United States. We look at the amount of deaths. You said that there were over 500 fentanyl deaths in Riverside County, which is where we live, over 500 deaths last year, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so with over 500 deaths last year, let's talk about anthrax, if you would. You had you had a comparison to make on these two issues.
Right. Arguably, fentanyl is the deadliest man-made chemical ever made based on the numbers of people it's killed. You remember the anthrax letters in the early 2000s that were mailed out. 6 or 7 people died, and, God knows that was a tragedy. But here we have literally tens of thousands of people being killed by, again, a man-made chemical, fentanyl, and we're doing nothing to stop this threat from a federal standpoint.
Well, we look at the thing that we did to stop that anthrax threat. There was a lot of resources.
Yeah, it was the biggest combined investigation at its time with combined Homeland Security, the FBI. It was all hands on deck, and one of the most expensive investigations ever as well.
So I guess a good question is, why aren't those type of resources being utilized to stop the crisis we have with fentanyl?
That's the question. That's the $1 million question that so many of us who have lost a loved one are trying to answer.
Right. We have just recently we had a teacher. This is right here in the state of California. Let me just read this. A 13-year-old student from Chipman Junior High School in Bakersfield was arrested after being caught with 150 fentanyl pills disguised as Percocet, which is what they do, right? They disguise these things. The department's preliminary investigation found that the staff member had discovered the pills because the student was involved in an unrelated altercation with another student. The New York Post reported that the police said that the supervisor did not ingest the pills, but opened the bottle to check it and was exposed due to them being an inhalant hazard. And we know that this is now affecting teachers. It has affected police officers that search a suspect that has fentanyl. Police officers have died on the spot. This is a highly, highly deadly drug, and it is pouring over our southern border.
Absolutely. And to the bigger picture, this just further shows that our youth are being targeted with this drug. They're disguising it. They're putting it in shapes that look like sweet tarts and making them colorful, making them very appealing to young people. This is all in a targeted effort by the cartels operating with impunity just south of our border, flooding this into our nation to get people starting at a very young age hooked on fentanyl, because then they will become lifelong customers. And why our administration is not looking at this as a national security threat is beyond me. Just a few weeks ago, I remember watching on the news, big announcement. The White House was bragging, if you'll call it that, about a drone strike against one of the masterminds of the 9/11 terrorist attack. We took him out 8,000 miles away, and we can't take any of these head cartels out that are just miles across our border.
Yeah, well, I think the answer is we could take them out.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we wanted to.
Yes.
And now you talk about the cartels, but the cartels are getting this from somewhere.
Yeah.
So there's a process. Talk to us about the process. How is this stuff getting onto our streets?
Well, it all starts with China. That's who's making this chemical. China is the manufacturer of all the chemicals that make up fentanyl. They're sending it to the cartels, knowing absolutely very well the destruction that it's doing here in America, and they're letting the cartels do the dirty work while they wash their hands of most people not realizing that they're behind this. And China is absolutely behind this. They're wrecking America, and they're laughing all the way to the bank. It's twofold: the cartels and China. But if at the very least, we could be putting sanctions on China. China's a tougher animal to deal with, but the cartels aren't. The cartels wouldn't be so difficult. They need to be labeled a terrorist organization, and we need to take them out just like we did ISIS and Al Qaeda. There are two main there are two main cartels in Mexico. We know where they're at. They're isolated in certain areas. They can be dealt with. It's a matter of if we want to take this fentanyl epidemic seriously or not.
So we've got the issue with China, we've got the issue with the cartels, then we have issue with dealers here in America, and obviously all those things are great issues. We have to deal with them all. Thankfully, in Riverside County, we seem to have a great target on these individuals that are dealing. And you know all too well about that experience, but and I keep saying this, you're the vanguard on this. You're the one that spearheaded all of this to bring the national attention to this issue. What are the precautions that law enforcement are taking here in in Riverside County very specifically? And
I appreciate the accolades. There are certainly other parents who have done their fair share of getting this out there as well. Here in Riverside County, fortunately, we're investigating these deaths criminally. It wasn't until relatively recently that drug deaths were just looked at as accidental overdoses, and the blame was really on the user. We're changing the mindset of law enforcement. We've educated them and changed the narrative to realize that people are being poisoned, and these deaths are homicides. And with that, you need to change your investigative tactics. So that is all changed here in Riverside County. Fortunately, we are leading the way now. We have somewhere around 20 murder cases that have been filed against fentanyl dealers, and we're leading the way.
So I hear the number 500, over 500 deaths last year in Riverside County alone from fentanyl. My thought would be, well, then how many deaths have we had from other things? Let's say from shootings, from guns. We talk about the gun crisis in America. Guns are so bad. How many people in Riverside County died from guns last year? My guess is a whole lot less than 500.
Yeah, and people don't know this, but the number one cause of death for Americans aged 13 to 50 is fentanyl.
So say that one more time.
The number one cause of death for Americans aged 13 to 50 is fentanyl.
The number one cause of death.
Yes. Surpasses gun violence, disease, cancer, car accidents, drunk driving, COVID, all of that.
All right. Yeah. And where is the outcry? This is the thing that I keep asking is, where's the outcry? There's so much outcry for so many issues in our culture right now. Where's our president on this issue? We've got an open border. They can DHS can say what they want, but we have an open border. Mm-hmm. And this stuff is flooding over. It's the number one cause of death, and we're concerned about whether people have a mask on their face to travel. It's ridiculous. Number one cause of death. Where's our president on this issue?
I pray to God that there's a change of administration. I do think our voices nationwide, myself and other parents in my shoes, we're starting to be heard. And God willing, this will be a major topic in the next election. And somebody will step into office that'll be serious about ending this epidemic.
Yeah, there's only so much that we can do. Hopefully we can get a new administration. Somebody will take this seriously. Number one cause of death in America for that age group. But, of course, there's only so much we can do. What can the individuals, parents, concerned citizens, what can they do?
There are several things. Parents need to, I'll start with the young kids. If you have a middle schooler that has a telephone, get parental monitoring software on your kid's telephone. It'll run in the background. Your child won't even know it's on there, but you will be alerted if anything drug-related or any other nefarious activity comes across your child's phone. Have this talk with your kid. There can be no more experimenting with drugs these days. It's not like it was when I was growing up, that you might try something, you get high, whatever. Worst case, you might feel bad the next day. No, you can die with one use. And, parents really need to discuss this with their children, not to take anything given that to them by a friend, especially any kind of pill, unless it comes from in a bottle from their doctor or pharmacist. And parents have to realize that you can't have this attitude of not my kid. I don't have to worry about that. We're seeing anywhere from scholar students to athletes to it affects rich, poor, black, white. Doesn't matter. This drug does not discriminate, and no adolescent is immune from this.
Yeah. What are the things to look for? We hear the term "see something, say something." I don't know what I'm even looking for. Like, what if we were to see something? What are we seeing? Because it's not the way it was when I was a kid. You talk about certain drugs. You could take a drug and and the next day maybe feel bad, but this will kill you one dose. Another thing is drug dealers don't seem to be the same way they used to be. Like, we used to see drug dealers on the side of the road. They'd be exchanging money and stuff. Drug dealing has become different. So when we say see something, say something, what are we even looking for?
Well, I would look for changes in behavior from your son or daughter. If you see them more withdrawn, depression, anxiety is at an all-time high with young people these days, brought on heavily by social media. Kids, can be so cruel. And, in my day, if you were picked on or something, you might just go home and close your bedroom door and not have to worry about it till the next day. Today, because of social media and everything being posted on all these apps and social media sites, you can be picked on 24/7. There's amongst young girls, the pressure to look good for boys and everything is crazy. And it's created this depression and anxiety amongst our youth. So watch for behavioral changes. In terms of if you suspect your child is taking drugs, God forbid, get Narcan. Narcan is something that will reverse a fentanyl overdose. Every parent should have Narcan in their medicine cabinet at this point. Fentanyl is the number one cause of death, not only of Americans aged 13 to 50, but the fastest growing segment of that age range is our youth. And we are losing a young person nearly every 7 minutes right now to fentanyl poisoning. Twice as likely to die from fentanyl than drunk driving. So if you don't think this can't happen to you, don't be naive. Chances are at some point in our life, we all tried something one time or not. Things haven't changed. Kids will be kids.
Yeah. Well, Matt Capelouto, thank you so much for joining us today. How can people connect with you?
Our organization, druginducedhomicide.org. Under my personal name, Matt Capelouto, I'm on Facebook. I leave a lot of my information public. Our organization Facebook page is facebook.com/drug-induced homicide. All of those are ways that you can get a hold of us.
Okay. Well, thank you again for joining us. We wish the best results in November 7th when you're there for that hearing, and we do pray that this will set a precedence for all people that would seek to poison our children, murder our children, that this would send a message very loud and very clear to them that we will not put up with it. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and I want to thank you all for joining us today. We'll see you next time right here on Our Watch with Tim Thompson.